Starting in a wide squatted position, I like doing several quick raises up and down just to really warm up my legs and my whole body actually. This feels really good. I never skip this. I do this every single morning, about 10 to 15 of these. Then I like to get a nice deep stretch in my hamstrings and open up my shoulders, just bending forward in a wide angle now. And this really opens up my back body as well as the backs of my legs. Just feels really good, especially in the morning. And I like to twist to each side for a nice stretch along my spine, opening up in the front body now. Moving on to these split lunges, being sure to position my knees forward, getting a nice deep stretch in my hip flexor, elongating the neck, remembering to keep my shoulders back, keeping a nice posture throughout, switching sides and doing the same thing on the other side. Elongating my entire body, accessing my breath, of course, always in through the nose and out through the nose. Splits position. I do the splits every single day. Probably the reason that I'm able to maintain doing the splits every single day. And I just love to open up in my hips. It's so important, flexibility that is, especially as I get older. So this is something I never skip because I want to be able to keep doing this. And switching to the other side now. It's always different on one side of the body versus the other, which is completely normal. It's interesting to feel the difference in the body. Deep, steady breathing, always. And now I love to use my sofa to put I press the sole of my foot against my sofa, and that ensures that my forward leg is stabilized in that 90-degree angle. This not only feels really good, but it feels very supportive for my body, and I'm able to breathe deeply here while maintaining the integrity of the position. So I quite like using the edge of my sofa for this. I've only just started doing this with the sofa, that is, but I really like it, so I keep doing it this way. And just doing the other side here. Now, coming into one of my favorite stretches, again using the sofa, and I come down on my knee and then raise my upper body up and use the sofa as a support. This just feels so fantastic. This is great for maintaining excellent overall posture, being mindful to keep a long neck and chest, shoulders open, breathing deep through the nose and out through the nose. Diaphragmatic breaths. And I just love the way this feels. Coming forward, stretching again the hip flexors. And this is great too for strengthening the knees and just the joints overall in the legs. Just keeps me very mobile overall. And I feel very secure in my body doing this. The other side now, doing the same thing, making sure to keep the chest forward and the spine long. And here also I tuck the pelvis slightly forward with the tailbone straight towards the floor. And coming forward now on this leg into a lunge position. I absolutely love this stretch. Now lowering onto my knees, I'm going to come all the way down. There I go. I'm going to come all the way down now, carefully of course, lowering my body down. And in this position, I make sure that my knees are together with my legs bent, and I'm careful to have as much of my back in contact with the floor as possible, so as not to arch my back. I like to have a flat back, so I get that nice elongated stretch. And I like to have my arms overhead to really open up in the chest and the entire front and back body. This just feels awesome. Breathing deep in through the nose and out through the nose. I like to take 3 or 4 deep breaths in this position. And then oftentimes I'll come into a back bend or wheel position, because it feels really good to arch my back after not having arched my back in that previous stretch. This just feels really good as a counter stretch. Lowering carefully now and having knees coming to the chest. Again, a counter stretch here. And I'm going to come into a bound angle pose here, or sometimes called cobbler's pose, and lead forward with my chin. I like to lower my upper body to the floor in front of me, getting a nice, wonderful hip opening. And this is one of my favorite stretches of all time, because again, it just opens up so much in the hips. And if you've not noticed, I love hip opening stretches probably the most, because they just feel really good. And I find, interestingly enough, that over the years, having mastered these hip opening postures has a profound effect on my mental health in a positive way. So just a note. And coming into frog position here, another hip opening pose, making sure to keep my shoulders nice and relaxed and open, always being mindful to keep a long spine, a long neck, and leaning forward with my upper body, and just taking a few deep, restful breaths in this pose. This is another good pose to keep practicing so that the flexibility in the hips is maintained, which is my goal. My goal is training for longevity. So I just keep breathing here. Good for building distress tolerance as well, obviously. And coming now into kneeling position or hero pose. This is a resting pose, a moment to stretch my shoulders completely. And just maintain a good posture overall. I like this shoulder stretch because it opens completely in my shoulders and it just feels really good, as well as my neck, making sure that I have full mobility. And switching to the other side, I just do the same thing on the other side. Great for posture and just overall straightness. I often end my stretching sessions doing this. Finally, taking a reverse prayer pose to conclude my stretching session, and giving silent gratitude here for my body, the miracle of the human body, and showing up for my practice every day, acknowledging that, and most of all, gratitude and acknowledgement of my breath. And we say Namaste.